everybody. Welcome to another exciting episode of Javier in the Air. Why is it in the air? Because we don't know what goes up and we don't know what comes down on this show. It's always something exciting. Speaking of exciting, we changed. I changed the theme a little bit. Originally, it was just gardening, but I had a fantastic interview with two friends of mine, and we got into actually talking about hiking. So this is going to be hiking, gardening, and beer. So yes, beer always, and hiking and gardening. So I haven't really done much hiking, so I'm not going to act like I'm an expert. I'm definitely not even close to it. I'm not really that big of a fan of hiking. It sounds interesting, and I think if I had the right person to motivate me, I would probably do it. And then I might like it and love it, and then we would have a whole separate podcast just on hiking alone, be a Javier hiking in the air type of thing. But right now, that's not going to happen. So, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and turn over to my friends, and they're going to talk about hiking a little bit. And then I'll come back and I'll introduce the next interview, which has to do with gardening. So let's give it over to interview Hav and see how he did with the interview with my friend. Hey, go ahead, interview Hav. Hey, thanks a lot, podcast Hav. All right, so I have a great couple here, and we're going to talk a little bit about hiking, and we're going to talk a little bit about nature. And we're here is Aaron and Bradley Mountain. Take it away. Talk a little bit about yourselves and why you like to do what you do with hiking. Go for it.
Yeah, Javier, thanks so much for having us. We're super excited. So again, my name is Brad Mountain. This is my wife, Erin. Hi. And I guess with the last name Mountain, we should be into the outdoors and should be all about hiking. Because if we weren't, pretty sure we'd have to get the name changed. Yeah,
gotta live up to the name.
Totally.
But no, Aaron and I we're always looking for a great adventure, and we've had the privilege and been really fortunate to check out some of the most beautiful national parks all over the world. Most of them being right in our backyard in the U.S. There's just so many beautiful places. So, every year we try to hit up at least one new national park, and that's been kind of one of our biggest goals. So. And we're actually hopping on a plane tomorrow, and we're going to go to California and check out Yosemite, which we're super excited about. But we love this, getting outdoors into nature and getting outside the city, quite frankly.
Yeah, it's a great challenge. It's a good workout.
Yeah.
Proud of by the end of doing it. So it's yeah.
That's excellent. So let me ask you something. So you said you're hitting Yosemite tomorrow, and you've hit some parks. We were talking about that beforehand. So how many would you say you hit every year? And then like a ballpark of like how many you've hit so far, and how long you two have been doing it together, not separate. How long have y'all been doing it together? And then finally, I'll wrap all that together with how do y'all decide on what parks you should go?
Cool. So I guess starting out, we obviously we'll do a minimum of one per year together, but I would say on average, we're probably doing, 2 to 3 per year?
Yeah, it's this year a lot more because we can't travel outside of the U.S. So it actually gives us a really good excuse to double here on some parks.
No, excellent.
It's a great quarantine activity because you're just kind of out and socially distanced from people. So yeah, about 2 or 3 a year. I grew up in California, so I was very spoiled to be among the redwood forest and get to do some hikes there. Brad's from the East Coast, so he's seen some of the greatness on the Appalachian Trail and some of the parks there. So we grew up in very forested areas, and I think that's probably where it started. And then when we first started dating, one of my criteria when I started dating him was, do you like to travel and do you like to hike? And especially with the last name Mountain, it should have been an obvious yes. We aligned very well on the traveling philosophy, and it's been kind of the root of our relationship and fun ever since. So it's a great thing to do, both solo or by as a couple.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so how do you decide then?
So we try to rotate. So we'll do like at least again one big trip per year. We'll do more than that, but each of us, every other year we'll get to pick like the major hike that we do. So this past July, it was my turn to pick. So I've always wanted to go to Glacier, Montana. That's been like on my bucket list. So that was my pick, and Erin this year decided to go wild, and we're doing 7. So she pretty much gave me an itinerary and said, this is what we're doing this year because of COVID. So I, reluctantly, I guess, said, all right, let's roll with it.
Yeah, he got 1 last year. I got 7 this year, just because COVID added like the extra.
You got to go up. I mean, what are you going to do? You're not going anywhere else. You can't leave the United States. So,
Exactly.
So, okay, so how many have you hit so far this year? I mean, it's already September, so I'm assuming 3, 4, 5.
So let's see. In the U.S., because let's see, we did Patagonia in November, so that was last year, and that's outside. And then this year,
Rocky Mountain. We did a lot of Colorado.
Yeah, I saw your photos.
Yeah, but really, we couldn't really go anywhere during quarantine, so we just started to get back into traveling. So most of our hikes this year will be in the fall, which will actually be really nice to hike in.
Yes.
So we're going to Yosemite tomorrow. We're going to be going to Bryce and Zion, Big Bend, which is just in our backyard in Texas, and then Tetons and Yellowstone. So that's all for the rest of this year that we're going to be doing.
That's definitely awesome. That's great. So, okay, so let me see. So you've been all over the place. You've done it around the world. What is the hottest park that you've ever been to, and then the coldest park that you've ever been to?
Wow, that's a great question.
Death Valley. I mean, given its name.
Not even a park. I mean, isn't it just like bags of dust, and that's pretty much it?
It's like being in a desert, but a really pretty desert. But you don't want to be out there without water or run out of gas while you're driving through it. So.
Wow, that's crazy. And how long were you out there?
We were out there. We did a big road trip, so we kind of hit a bunch in California because you've got like Joshua Tree kind of south, and then you'll go through Death Valley on your way up. So we hit a few. So we were only there for a few days at a time, which is plenty of time if you're doing a national park and enjoying it and hiking and relaxing. But you can hit multiples on a single trip if you're dedicated to it.
Okay, and now what about the coldest? Now the coldest I'm thinking because I think I know where some may be. So you can go anywhere in the world. So the coldest one that you've ever been to in the world.
Probably Patagonia. Yeah. So this is actually a great story. You'll get a kick out of this. So in November, we went to Patagonia in Chile and Argentina. So we hiked both sides.
Wow.
And so when we were actually in Chile, we went and stayed in this town called Puerto Natales, and it's about 45 minutes outside the park. Really cool area.
Okay.
And so we spent the night there, had a great dinner, hung out in town, explored, and then next morning we got up and went into the park. And when we were in the park,
and it's Torres del Paine National Park
is the name of the park, yeah.
Okay.
And so we get into the park and we get to our hostel that we're going to be staying at, and it's beautiful. It's sunny and probably 75 out, and we're super excited. Like the weather couldn't have been better, and we had our really big hike the next morning. So we said, okay, hey, if the weather's like this, we're going to be in great shape. So, fast forward, the next morning we woke up and we had to hit the trail at like 2:30 in the morning because we wanted to summit at sunrise.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, that makes sense. All right.
So we wake up and, we get ready and we, take a step outside the hostel, and it is torrential downpour. Like it couldn't have been stormier out, and it was freezing cold. So, and keep in mind, it was a 15 and a half, 16-mile hike that we did that day. Yeah. So we hiked in the, cold, rainy, dark, damp, for
at least half of it.
Yeah, for half of it. And so by the time we got to the summit, and it took, 5.5, 6 hours to get up there, it was snowing and we were already just drenched, freezing in. It kind of sucked because as soon as we got up there, the visibility wasn't great and we were freezing. So as soon as we got up there, we're like, all right, let's head back down. Yeah. So, but that was by far the coldest I've been. I mean, literally the second we stopped moving is when we were shivering. And we didn't want to risk.
I'm sure you couldn't even stop moving. You're going to be like, well, we lost Aaron.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Oh, well, it's okay. You still thaw out in the summer. Don't worry about it. Wow. That's
exactly.
It was a journey, but it was worth it. It was beautiful up there, even though some of the visibility wasn't good. But probably one of the hikes we've ever done.
Yeah, by far.
Very cool. Very cool. All right, so let me think. How about one of your scariest stories while you were at a park? And I know you know the one I'm talking about. So
Go for
That
it.
would probably be in Glacier National Park in Montana.
okay,
Beautiful park. But when you're going into some of those parks, there are a lot of bears, both grizzly and black bears.
yeah,
So
yeah,
you have to go into those parks prepared. Usually it's required. You need to carry around bear spray, which is essentially a big can of bear mace. So if you get into trouble or proximity of one and you need to use it to protect yourself, you can. Normally, they're pretty used to humans as long as you're making noise on the trails. They tend not to bother you. But this one hike that we did in Glacier, we were there with there was a group of people in front of us. We were kind of hiking in a straight line on this trail.
okay.
And there was a big turn that we came around, and the people in front of us came rushing back, and we were like, "What's wrong?" And they said, "We saw a bear. He's just around the corner eating huckleberries for breakfast." And when we turned the corner, the bear got up on both his hind legs, and it was scary, but he was more just interested and curious of who we were and what we were doing during his breakfast soiree. And what you need to do is just not panic or have any quick movements. So just walk back very slowly.
Right.
And he just kept on with his little huckleberry feast. He walked along the trail and then kind of walked past us, and we were fine. But I'd never been that close to a bear before. And you never know with a wild animal if they're
No, they
really
can just turn and
what to do.
yeah.
Yeah, 'cause
Wow.
we were probably within like what 6 to 8 feet of
Yeah.
the bear. I mean, it was very close.
Okay,
And
so let me get this straight. The people came rushing back,
and I had to go.
you
Of
forward to go around the corner still.
course.
They
I
said,
mean,
"Can you go take care of the bear?"
because
Yeah, like one of
'Cause
those,
the
you're like, hey, there's some gunshots, and you're like, I'm gonna go see what's going on over there.
That's Brad for you.
yeah, I mean, I had to. I mean, so here's the thing: growing up on the East Coast and Appalachian Trail, you see signs like "Watch out for bear," but you would never see them. So, in Glacier, it's hey, you will see bear, and I wanted to see it, so we pushed forward, and sure enough, we saw him. That's for sure.
It's a good thing we have a good life insurance policy.
You live to tell the tale that which is awesome because remember also you always want to stick your partner, so you want to go in partners. You want to stick your partner because as long as you can run faster than your partner,
Good to go, right?
you are golden. You don't have to worry about it. Just stick her and run, or she sticks you and run. It's all good. That is really awesome. That's a good story. So I guess I never eat huckleberries, but if I did eat huckleberries, I guess I'd be like, hey, I got a story to go with huckleberries.
I would actually recommend Javier, since you do a lot of brewery reviews, that there's
Yes.
some amazing huckleberry beer that comes out of Montana and the Pacific Northwest. It's probably one of my favorite beers that I've ever had.
Of all time, yeah.
Yeah.
Really? Do
So-
you own any brewery? The name of the brewery's there?
Yeah, so we went to this brewery in Whitefish, Montana, which is this really cool ski town outside of Glacier. And we'll send you the info for the brewery. But
Yeah, definitely.
we went to like a flight of beers, and that huckleberry beer it's
Solid.
dangerous.
They only sell it though in the Pacific Northwest. They don't come out this
wow.
far to Texas. So
Wow.
it was usual because you couldn't get it here.
Yeah, because maybe during COVID, I've noticed that a lot of breweries are now, hey, we'll ship you, we'll do it. Like before they were like, no, we want to be, we're really specific to this area of the country. And now
Yeah.
COVID, they're like, you want it?
Yeah.
We'll send it to you. We don't care. As long as it's legal, we'll do it. So
Yeah.
that's good. So definitely give me the details, and then I can see if I can get a hold of some. Maybe I'll get some gratis, and
Yeah.
just send me.
Get some coming over because it's that good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and also the a lot of fruit beers that I've reviewed have been really good, and then the ciders, of course.
Yeah.
Austin East ciders and all those. I think I've only found like one or two that I was like, but the rest of them were fantastic. I know their blood orange is just
Killer.
yeah, it's really good. All right. Well, cool. All right. So let me think. One more question for people who haven't, especially now during the virus time, and are looking to do something, and they want to start hiking. I totally get you don't want to send them to Montana for their first hike. So what are some of And they want to make sure you have enough water and stuff like that. So what are some of the tips that you would tell for a young couple or old couple, doesn't really matter, who are starting out, want to start hiking because they have the time? So what are some really helpful tips and tricks that you guys have done over the years that you can tell our viewers and on how to do it?
Yeah.
I think it just depends on what kind of adventure you want. So there's all different types of national parks with all different types of terrain, from like the red rocks and desert to if you want really forest and mountain areas. If you want to see certain wildlife, you'll want to go to those areas. But honestly, there's so many different trails for so many different levels that we some of our favorite trails were only maybe a mile long.
Okay.
So you don't have to work hard to get to some of the pretty sites, but just do your research. We like to use All Trails as a great app and a website that kind of marks and shows you the different top trails. It's
Uh-huh.
by other hikers and people, and kind of shows you the elevation and pictures along people's routes. So that's a great place to just research if you're curious about going to the Grand Canyon or New Mexico. You can kind of look up some of the top hikes to see if they have some of the elements that you're looking for. Yeah, so research and just honestly just get outside. It shouldn't be intimidating. It's super fun, especially now when you can't go to many other places. It's a
Right.
great escape out of your house in a
Sure.
safe way. And the national parks need us to go visit them because it's the
Definitely.
tourism dollars that keeps them alive. One thing that we did do, and I would recommend for people to do, is invest in a national parks pass.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
only $80 for an entire year, and it covers all of your park entrances to any of the national
Wow.
parks in the U.S. And
Wow.
it's a great thing. Just pass. It's inexpensive. It supports the national parks, and then it gives you an excuse to start visiting some of
Yeah,
them.
because now you spend $80 and you're like, I gotta go.
Exactly,
I gotta go
exactly.
spend my money. That's
Yeah,
that's
I think, just a couple other things would be, do your homework, right? So a lot of the parks that we go to, you have to reserve online like the days that you're going to be there, and they book
okay.
up. So if you don't do that, there's a chance you could get to the park and it's completely booked, and you won't be able to go inside the park. So,
Gotcha.
um, so that would be one thing I'd recommend. The second thing I would say is, even if you're not a morning person, get up early and go, because there's nothing better than being on the trail by yourself, enjoying nature and seeing wildlife, and not having to deal with hundreds of people in front of you, behind you. The last thing you want to do in a national park is feel rushed, at least in my personal
Right.
opinion.
No, I
So,
agree.
so
Yeah.
we're always trying to be, one of the first ones out on the trail. And then just the last couple things I would say is just, have a checklist of things that you obviously need to bring, right? And make sure you double check that list and you have all of your gear. So making sure you have enough water, making sure you have enough snacks, making sure you have things to pack up all of your trash, right? So,
Yep. Yep.
um, and then I think the last thing would be is, don't be afraid to explore hikes that are in your backyard. And I'll just close with, one hike we left off that I completely forgot about is, during COVID, we were trying to find like hikes in Texas. And
Yeah.
we actually went to, it's called Palo Duro Canyon State Park, which is, well, let me ask you, have you heard of it?
I've never heard of it, and I've been
That's
almost my entire life. I've been in Texas. I've never heard of it.
I haven't either. Aaron hasn't either. And we were trying to find, just some hikes in Texas. So we came across Palo Duro, and it's the second largest canyon in the United States, only behind the Grand Canyon.
Really?
It's outside of
beautiful.
Amarillo, and it is breathtaking. And they have hikes for everyone there. If you wanted to do a 1 mile hike or a 10 mile hike, they got it. And it's
Biking too,
biking,
horseback riding.
zip
Um,
lining.
about 7 hours from Austin, and they've
Oh,
got
that's not
great
bad at all.
no, they've got great cabins out there, family friendly. It's awesome. And so to his point, not only the national parks, but there are some hidden gems of state
State
parks
parks.
that you should
Yeah.
really look
Yeah. State
into.
parks too. That's now. Will all trails? Would all trails have all that on in there? All the parks,
Yep.
state
All
and
parks.
national.
Yep, exactly. They'll have everything. They don't discriminate whether it's a national or a state
Nice.
park.
Oh, that's good. Then I think what I'm going to do then is I'll post this at the end. I'll post the website for all trails at the end. at the end with the credits that I have at the end of the podcast, and then everybody can reach out to All Trails, and we can go from there. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. We're big
Great.
proponents of getting outside. So especially now, it's a great stress reliever and
It's great.
get out, get out of the house.
Excellent. Well, thank you too, everybody. This was Aaron and Brad Mountain. They have been out hiking and getting all over the place and telling us how to do it. So I thank you again for letting me interview you. You talk about your passion of hiking, and good luck in Yosemite tomorrow.
Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks so much for having us. Let's do it again.
Oh, you know it. You know what? I got a special broadcast coming in December, and I know someone that likes doing it. So. And I'm gonna have a special one for Halloween coming up too, but December's just right around the corner. So you just posted something the other day too, didn't you? So about how that'd be awesome. We'll definitely talk. Maybe we can get together and put together like a tree or do something like that, something that themed. But I'll get back to you on that. So, all right,
cool.
Thank you both very much, and I'm gonna toss it back to Podcast Hop, and he'll take it from there. Take it away, Hop. Thanks, interview Hop. So now we're back. We're gonna go straight into our other section. It has to do with gardening. I have a lot in this episode, so I want to make sure I get to everything before everybody gets bored and starts turning it off. Please don't turn it off. This is a great interview here. So this is another friend of mine. Actually lives in the Cedar Park area, and she's going to talk about gardening and her love of it and what she does and what she used to do when she lived out in West Virginia. So without further ado, here's the gardening section of today's podcast. Take it away, Podcast Hub. Hey, thanks again, Podcast Hub. So, hey, everybody, once again, it's an interview hub, and I am interviewing the wonderful person that I have right here. I'm going to let her introduce herself, and we're going to talk about gardening today. So, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Jana. Hi, I like to garden.
Perfect. That's a great opening. So we were talking earlier before the interview that you did a lot of gardening out in West Virginia. Take us through a little bit about that and what you grew there, and that sort of thing. Just start from there, and we'll go from there.
Sure. So I grew up in a family of gardeners. My grandmother always gardened. My mom had a garden for a while, and then she kind of got tired of gardening, but I always liked it, and never really had the space when we lived in Texas to garden. And when we moved out to West Virginia in 2005, I didn't really have a space to garden there either, but when we bought our house out there, we had some land, and so we decided to build some garden beds, and we built this giant 8-foot fence around it that could keep the deer out.
Nice.
And then we started growing things. So I was channeling my inner Grandma Jan, and we started with like tomatoes. There's nothing better than a tomato that comes from a garden that you're growing it from. Zucchini, obviously, that's one everybody goes with, and then you learn a lot of things that you don't know about zucchini, so you perfect that over the years. We've grown jalapenos and cayenne peppers and bell peppers, and we've grown tomatillos. Scotty grew hops. We grew those up the side of the big tall fence.
Mm-hmm.
I actually despise those plants because they reach out and grab you. They've got a lot of thorns and sticky things. I mean, they're great, and he harvested the hops and all that, but every time I walk past those plants, they like scratched me. So
nice.
Yeah, we gardened probably for about 5 years before we decided to move back home. I haven't set up any gardens yet here, mostly because I'm pretty sure my dog would destroy them.
Right.
So I just do my gardening now just kind of in flowers, like flower beds. So
cool. So you were saying something that you uprooted in the front and you planted Texas flowers?
Yeah, so when the house that we bought here has the standard ugly bushes, 25 years ago they were planted too close together, so half of them were dead. And I took spring break, which we all know was a big bust.
Yes.
So I took all that frustration on ripping out 9 bushes in total, roots and all,
Wow.
And I took another week off from work around my birthday and went to this really cool nursery that's in Leander. I think it's called Red Barn or something off the top of my head. I can't remember, but um, picked out a bunch of Texas plants. Like I did pick a bush and then a bunch of other plants that,
Hmm.
attract the bees and the butterflies and stuff.
Right.
And I like to go with native plants because they tend to be more drought tolerant and
Sure.
things like that. So
Yeah. No, that's great. In fact, I was gonna mention that if you did about local Texas flowers and how beneficial they are for the bees and butterflies. Definitely the bees. You want to have
mhm.
their get the bees, especially because they were hurting for a while. They still haven't made a comeback, but and then the butterflies as well, because then that's always nice to have the butterflies come. And
Yeah.
so
And if you plant things for butterflies, that also brings in the hummingbirds, which are kind of my favorite things.
yes, I have a lot. Actually, I don't know if they're still here or not. I'll have to look. Right in between my house and my neighbor's house, there was a series of flowers that they had planted years ago, or someone did. And the hummingbirds and they're like any, birds, they come back seasonal and they come back. And we used to have like 12, 15 hummingbirds that would come out and sit out there. And you could just barely see them. And they were great. I don't remember seeing them this year, but of course, I'm sure COVID took out something, because I'm blaming COVID for everything now. And so they were there, and it was really great. So planting the Texas flowers is a great idea. For our audience, if you don't want to deal with harvesting and overly watching everything and being watchful and mindful of all that, you can plant the Texas flowers as well, and then allow the honeybees and the butterflies to come. And you don't have to do much. Do you have to do much work for the Texas flowers? Normally you don't, right?
No, just when you first plant them, you've got to make sure that they do get watered pretty regularly until they kind of established.
Yeah.
But when you start seeing growth on them, you can scale that back because you got to survive, man. You can't be watered all the time.
Yep.
But, another thing too, if you don't want to do the vegetable garden and you do a flower garden that brings in the bees, the pollinators, you're helping out the neighbors around you
Sure.
that do have vegetable gardens because
Yeah.
there's just
Yeah.
more for them to flitter around and be happy about. So,
That's
you know,
great. And now for you said tomatoes, and you said you love the smell of tomato leaves, but have you, and I've asked this of other people, and I haven't had it on interview, but there's many different types of tomatoes. And when I hear people growing tomatoes, they're always growing the standard red tomato and everything. But there's a lot of heirloom tomatoes. There's a lot
yeah,
of,
heirlooms are my favorite.
are they? Where they're different colors? Like I've seen some that are purple.
The purple ones
Yeah.
are my favorite. Yeah, and off the top of my head, I can't think of a name of one. I would get my heirloom tomatoes from a company called Baker Heritage Heirloom, something like that.
Yeah.
And I got some great, like red stripy. So they're kind of like they start out striped and they're green and orange. And when they, are totally like ripened, they're the most delicious things. I love any tomato that's purple
Right.
is,
Right.
and even when you can go to like Whole Foods will have heirloom tomatoes, right?
Yeah,
They're
but
still, they're still not as, and they are, and they're still not as good as the tomato that you grow. I mean, I don't know. I think it's they harvest them earlier so they can get them to the store, so they're
Right.
ripening in
Yeah.
a tree or something. When you take those, couple that are about to be ready and you take them inside and you clip off part of the vine, right? You don't just pull tomatoes off and let them
Right.
ripen. They're so delicious, man. I love tomatoes. We made salsa, we make spaghetti sauce. Like if you do vegetable gardening, I highly recommend getting a pressure canner, even if it's just to make pickles with the bajillion cucumbers that you're going to harvest.
Yeah.
It's still fun. It's
Right.
just something to do that's, I don't know. I like giving away pickles
Yeah.
for Christmas or making salsa verde,
Uh-huh.
with the tomatillos and giving that as Christmas presents. It's a fun hobby.
Yeah,
And it
no, that's
gets,
great. In fact, I need to get, like we were talking about, I need to build some garden beds in the back. But once I get all this other stuff done, and then I wanted to look at heirloom stuff, not just tomatoes, but there's other heirloom varieties of fruit and vegetables out there. So what would be So what was one of the hardest things that you ever had to grow? Like you said, oh, I can grow this, and then all of a sudden you were like, oh my
Like
God, this is unbelievable.
I know exactly. I have never, and this is gonna, all the Texans out there, I have never been able to grow okra. I suck at growing okra. I have never, it's either been like, I don't know. I miss that perfect window to get an okra off of the plant. And by the time we get them, they look good, but then you start cutting into it and it's like a chunk of wood. Like they get very
Really?
fibrous,
Wow.
and I cannot grow okra. That's probably the one thing that I've tried growing, because there's a bajillion things that I've not tried growing.
Right.
Um, but of all the things that I've tried to grow, okra was one that I really suck at. Oh, okra and any kind of melon, cantaloupe, watermelon.
Really?
I don't know why I can't get them right.
Well, I know the melons require a lot of water, but I mean,
Well,
I
the
don't
the
know.
pests that go after those, because they tend to be rolly on the ground. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just, yeah. I don't know. I just suck at those particular things. I buy those at the store. It's
Hey,
okay, or
no,
the
it's all
farmers
good.
market. Somebody else is good at growing it, so I'll buy it from them.
Right. Exactly. That works out. That's why there's a lot of farmers markets around. So, and especially during this time with the virus and everything, a lot of people are wanting for something to do and come up with new hobbies and stuff like that. And gardening is one of those where a lot of people are like, okay, I can do that, which is why I go back again to a lot of tomatoes because it seems to be now. I haven't done it, but it seems to be so easy to grow tomatoes here in this part of Texas that everybody's like, I'm gonna grow tomatoes. But then you're like, hey, let me trade with my neighbor or my friends or family that are growing too, and they're like, what are you growing? I'm growing tomatoes. What are you growing? I'm growing tomatoes. Then nobody can trade with anything because everybody's growing tomatoes.
Yeah.
So I don't. I know when I get the arty beds going, I'm not going to grow tomatoes. I'm going to try other things. There's fruits that I've been wanting to try, and there's some vegetables I definitely want to try and see what I can get at, what I can do to get it. And that'll be a whole nother podcast adventure on how Javier destroys the vegetables.
So I have a good suggestion
Okay.
for one of the funnest things that I've ever grown, because everybody goes with squash and zucchini, right? And it's so cute when I see people post a picture of their tiny little, 4 foot by 4 foot bed, and they've got 4 zucchini plants starting in there. It's like, baby, that plant, one of those plants needs a 6 foot bed all by itself, right? And it
Mm,
produces so much that you run out of ideas to do with zucchini. Now, don't
yeah.
I love zucchini, but it's not the most exciting thing. So, anyways, there is a kind of squash called a patty pan squash.
Say
It's
that
a
again.
little a patty pan squash. So it kind of looks like a little white flower, and it's a squash, right?
Okay.
Um, it is the most delicious squash. You do not care how much you get. You can eat it raw. You can make casseroles. Like, you can do a bajillion things with this squash, and it's cute. It looks like a little white flower. Like, I'll send you a picture of one. But that's a really fun one to grow. And it sounds just as boring as every other squash, but it's so delicious, and there's so many ways. And like I said, you can slice that baby up, dip it in ranch, and you're a happy person. Like, it's good.
Nice.
So it's a fun one, and like I said, it's cute. And they don't get so big that you can't, like you have too much. Like, when they're ready,
Yeah.
there's a few that are kind of coming in, and you can have those two, and they make a great side dish. You know what I'm saying? You can use more of that vegetable for a side
Right.
dish. It's a fun one. Patty pan squash.
Patty
It's
pan squash. So for our viewers, patty pan squash. Try to say that 3 times fast. Patty pan squash. Oh, cool. Well, I know one of the things too that people have that they don't think about is really when they start trying to grow fruit, uh, trees or even bushes. Once you get them established, you better love that fruit
Yes, that's for
because
sure.
I mean, I also have other friends that have fruit trees and they're like, please come and take our lemons or our oranges or our cherry, not cherries, but anything and everything. They're like, we have 10,000 apples, and we can't
Big.
pick them. And figs. Yes, figs in Texas definitely. And they can't eat enough. They can't eat the amount in time, and they can't give it out in time. So it just drops on the ground, and it gets all nasty, and then the flies come.
That's why you learn to make jelly, because
Yes.
those figs that have gotten a little bit gross on the ground, it's cool, man. You wash them off and you make jelly, because you are sanitizing the crap out of that while you're making it anyway. Now, I
True.
say that I've never actually made jelly. I've watched jelly be made. I have a lot of good ideas, but I don't necessarily like doing all the things.
Yes.
But
Yes.
that is or find somebody that does like to make jelly. I
Right.
think that's a great way to use that stuff. Strawberries, we grew strawberries, and my son and I love strawberries, but my husband is allergic, so we
Mm.
would not have, we would just have an overabundance of strawberries. But if you have a problem with rabbits, they will stay away from your garden because they're eating your strawberries. So, like, they'll stay out of the vegetables.
Oh, okay. So you're basically
Yeah,
sacrificing the
yeah, like where
strawberries.
ours was, the strawberry patch was further away from like the actual flower garden beds, because they're going to come back every year. So they need, well,
Right.
in West Virginia anyway, they're
Yeah.
going to come back every year. So they need their own space. So it was off to the side. And when we were like, dude, I can't eat another strawberry, they kept the rabbits away from the actual vegetable garden. So,
Nice. Nice.
you
Well,
know.
that's
And
good.
blueberries, if you grow blueberries and raspberries and stuff, man, you gotta like that fruit,
You
because
gotta, and I love blueberries, but I know they're just so prolific. They just dump and dump and dump and dump. So you either, like you said, you either have to can them, find somebody to can them, or basically just give them away to anybody that drives down your street. Here's some blueberries, please take them, because it gets crazy.
send Daddy to work with bags and bags and bags of vegetables and fruit to give to his coworkers. Like,
Nice.
please, I cannot look at another zucchini.
Okay,
I'm sure
so
at some point they were like, "Can you please stop bringing us all
yeah, they're like, we don't want it. This is now you're punishing us. This is not a gift.
vegetables?"
Oh, that's so awesome. Okay, so I know you're planning on getting some garden beds in the future. So what do you think would like to see in your garden? What would you like to grow once you get it established?
Um, well, I would definitely grow tomatoes. The thing about Texas is you've got an entire year that you can plant, right? So you can start in January and start, with your spinach and, things like that are kind
Hmm.
of better in colder temperatures,
Yeah,
and get things growing. And, if there's going to be a frost, you got to cover it up, right? So you don't want things to freeze, because it will destroy them. But you can start then, and then as spring rolls in, you can plant radishes, and these things all are going to be done by the time you have your next planting cycle. You know what I'm
right.
saying? Like, in where we were planting in West Virginia, everything kind of grew in at the same time, but harvest time was different, right? So it was very careful in planning out where you were putting things in the actual flower beds. Here, you can do little beds, because by the time your spinach is done, you're ready to plant the next thing. But and then you've got your peppers and stuff through the end of the summer, and then you can start planting things again in September
Hmm.
that will be more hardy in the cold. So, given that I don't have any flower beds, I have not tortured myself and gone out and really looked at the planting cycle in Texas, because it would
Right.
just make me sad that I'm not actually doing it. Um, but eventually, we are going to build some beds back here. We have a ton of these stupid live oaks. You know what I'm
Hmm.
talking about? They're great shade, but I hate their leaves. So
Yeah.
someone was telling me you can use those leaves when you build like a raised bed in your yard. You
Uh-huh.
can use those leaves, like just fill it, and then you don't have to put as much soil. And it's great for the water to go down. It
Got to
it
filter through.
cycles into a type of mulch kind of thing, so it's very organic. It's a natural weed blocker, because nothing can destroy those leaves. Like
Well, that's true.
you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
so I was really intrigued by that. And when our puppy, he's 2 now, but he's rambunctious and he would eat all the things. But when he eventually does calm down, that's probably exactly what we'll do. Is we'll build some raised beds. We'll use the round of leaves that is inevitable. I think this spring in the backyard alone, I had 26 bags of leaves.
Wow. Yeah, the oaks they're just they're so leafy. I mean, I guess that's the best way to say it, or probably not the best way. But yeah, they just all over the place. And you're right, and it kills everything.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
So, that's probably what we'll do to raise beds so that we don't have to bring in as much dirt. And then I'll really, I mean, in Texas, you really do have to pay attention to the planting guides, and they're all over the place. Like you can
oh yeah,
find, you don't even have to buy a book. You can just, find kind of gardener's guides on what things can be planted and kind of the cycle of it. I know in Texas, you don't want to let your tomato plants get too tall. Like in West Virginia, I could let those things get real tall, but here you kind of want them to start fruiting as quickly as possible,
oh
right?
right,
So
I
when you're
see.
planting tomatoes, so when it first starts growing, you want to, when it starts flowering, because you want it to get some more height so that you get a
Pluck 'em.
bigger yield. You want to pick some of those flowers off, because once it starts making tomatoes, man, it's not getting any taller. It's making fruit.
Right, it's going out that way, yeah.
So I know that here in Texas, because they don't have as long a growing cycle and they're not as drought tolerant, like they require a bunch of water too. You kind of want to let them like get a little bit of height, but then let them start doing the things. Let them start making some tomatoes for you,
Right.
because then they'll end up reaching the end of their cycle, and you can move on to planting the next thing. So it's kind of exciting to think about planting here, because like I said, you can plant all year long. I would go crazy in West Virginia from September until Memorial Day, when you can actually start planting things,
Yeah.
because you can't, it gets too cold there, so
Right,
it's
right.
very limited planting window. So it's kind of exciting here. You can do
Wow.
it all year. You can do it all year long.
That's great. So final question. So, for our viewers that are wanting to start gardening, what would be like the best tip, and then like maybe like the best thing to watch out for someone who says, "Hey, I've never done gardening before, but I have room in my backyard and I want to do it." What would be some of the best advice you can give?
I would really say to consider the things that you like to eat first and foremost. Don't think you're going to get all nuts and grow a bunch of things that you're just not going to use, because if you're the only person in your family that likes eggplant, and you plant an eggplant, I
Yeah.
mean, for real, unless you're going to, unless you've got like a gardening club or something where people will do some swaps because they're growing different things, which is also a good idea. There's all kinds of gardening groups on Facebook that you can get into in your local area that do that kind of thing. But I would really look at the things that you like to eat and
Okay.
start small. Don't make a small bed and put 4 zucchini plants in it, because they get giant. Really pay attention to the labels. There's some things that have to start indoors. There are some things that you can sow directly into the ground. I would, yeah, just, and some things require, like if somebody might love asparagus, right? You need to know that when you plant asparagus, you're not going to get asparagus the next year, and that's going to be a plant that's going to come back every year. So, well, I think, I'm not sure about that in Texas again, but that's one of those things that is a permanent, right? So if you have a limited space in your flower bed and you plant something that's going to have to come back year after year after year, you're kind of limiting what you can plant.
Right.
But lettuce and spinach is always great. And I definitely recommend figuring out how to freeze things. You can freeze zucchini. You can shred it up and you can freeze it, and you can use it to make zucchini breads and soups and different things, which I know sounds weird, but it's delicious. And don't try to do too much, right? Start small.
Yeah.
And then work your way up, because it is a learning curve. You're going to run into pests that you're not going to know how to deal with.
Ooh, yeah.
Find where to buy diatomaceous earth. That's the greatest pest control in your garden that is not a chemical. Diatomaceous earth.
Okay.
And yeah, just think of, most importantly, figure out the things that you're going to eat, right? That your family, you're going to be able to cook. Tomatoes are great because you can can them. You can make spaghetti sauce and put it, can it, and it has a good shelf life. You can make your diced tomatoes that you're normally buying in a can in the store, and you can do that. And it's not that expensive, and it's not that difficult. So it's fun. It's kind of a labor of love.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate your time and being interviewed today about the garden. And I'm sure I'm going to have you back for the beer. And I'm sure I'm going to have you back when I do a round 2 on the movies, because I didn't get you online last time. And but we got to talk movies, especially because you and I like some of the same movies, and so we got to talk about it. And eventually, what I'd like to do is actually do one from the shop.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah. So again, when we can, so that we're not like, "Ah, ah, ah." We want to actually be able to hear each other. So
Right, right.
hopefully soon. So and I told Scott about it, so we'll be good. Thank you so much for the time.
Yeah.
Um,
I love talking about gardening. So
I
that
I
was
can tell we could go on forever. So I'm sure we'll have a part two again. There always going to be a part two on all the other ones I do. So we'll talk again soon, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. And we're back again. Thanks a lot, Interview Hop. I don't know if you saw that I made a mistake in the last transition. If you did, please please put it in the comments below. First person to do it, I'm gonna give $5 to. Okay, so now we're gonna go into. You heard some great gardening. You heard some great nature when it comes to hiking and nature of gardening. And so now we're gonna go into our beer. I know this is a pretty long one, so I'm not gonna do a new beer. I think I might post something later on just in Facebook alone to keep my wits sharp about it. So I'm gonna drop in one of my older beers and that I reviewed, and we'll take it from there. And so, without further ado, here's old Javier from a couple months ago with a beer review. Take it away, beer review hop. Hey everyone, Javier here. Sitting out here in my garage instead of outside because of the rain. So today I'm gonna bring a nice, really nice beer from the team out at B52 Brewing. Here it is. Boom. B52 and Young. This is a triple hazy IPA. It has supposed to have hints of melon, coconut, and citrusy pine. So let's take a look at it. Here it is. There's a nice look at it. Very hazy. Oh, really nice. You can smell the coconut. You can definitely taste the coconut, and I can taste the melon. I can't taste the citrusy pine as much as I thought it would. Really good. I'm gonna give it 7 thumbs up. See you next time. Hey, we're back. And so that was Anyong. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed the entire show. Thank you to everyone who was part of the show today. I appreciate you spending the time to be interviewed by me. I hope it wasn't too painful. And for everybody, once again, get out there, get on the trails. If you want to start hiking, the best thing to do is just do it. And the best thing to do for gardening, it really is to just do it. Have focus and commitment for both, really, but just get out there and do it. And you'll start to enjoy yourself. So I really like to hear from any of my viewers about any hikes that they may have done because of this show, or any hikes that they're currently going to be doing. Let me know, and I'll mark it on here. I also, next week, I believe I'm going to have some mom and pop type stores and websites that you'll be able to go to and see some of the things that they will be bringing us. And I'm always looking for new themes, so please, if you have anything, IM me, DM me, put it in my YouTube channel. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. The more, the merrier. I'd like to start hearing from more people. Also, I'm going to start trying to do a panel at least once, maybe every other week, or maybe every couple of weeks. And so, if you're interested in being on the panel, where we will discuss different and varying topics, of course, no politics and no religion. So anything else is up for fair game. And so I'm hoping to have my first one here either next week or in 2 weeks. I think that'll be a lot of fun, and we'll see what we can do. Also, I had a great cooking one that I was going to bring you, but we ran out of time this episode, so I'm going to bring it to you next week, perhaps even 2, and we'll catch up with Chef Hav then and see how he's doing. So thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of your Labor Day weekend, and I will talk to you again next week. Goodbye, everybody.